everyone. So here in the Northeast, all morning I've been hearing the rain dancing on the roof. I don't know where all of you are, but if you're in the Northeast, hurricane or tropical storm Henri is upon us, and I guess will be for a while, into tomorrow probably. So it'll be a wet day. The cats are standing at the back door wondering why I won't let them outside, even though they were outside a half an hour ago, and I think they just forget that it's raining. So it's wonderful, wonderful to see all of you. Um, in our backyard, actually, the place where the cats would go to hang out if they could, there's a beautiful twisted old Japanese maple tree. It has delicate leaves that turn a brilliant orange in the fall. And actually, when the leaves fall, they're small and soft and thinner than a piece of tissue paper. We've been in our house for over 30 years, and so we've lived with this tree for 30 years. Actually, we bought the house before we were married, and so we had our wedding in this house, and after our wedding, our guests mingled outside underneath this old tree. Many of the people that were here at that time are no longer with us today. And while we've known this tree for over 30 years, it's actually we're told it's at least 100 years old. So it's really quite an old tree. It's a pretty unique specimen, I guess. Sadly, for the last several years, it's been struggling. It used to be shaded by several much larger trees, one of which actually came down during Hurricane Sandy. And that tree's fall damaged two other large trees, which had to be taken down. So now this maple tree is exposed to a lot more direct sunlight than it used to be exposed to, and the summers are hotter. For a while, it was underplanted with pachysandra, and an arborist told us to remove that to help it get more water. So we did that. And the arborist has tried a few things to see if we can keep the maple going, but it hasn't worked. It's very, very notably this year, sections of the tree have been dying back. So as it turns out, trees have a lifespan, just like people do, or cats, or lakes. Perhaps we can say the same thing about mountains, cities, planets, civilizations. Earlier this year, I considered replacing the tree with a new tree, which we'll eventually do. But we wanted to give it a chance to make sure we weren't killing the tree when it still had some life in it. I'm glad that we waited, not because the tree isn't dying. I'm glad because I've had the chance to see this withered old tree in the final stages of its life. It's still very, very beautiful. Not beautiful like it was as a full, healthy tree when we moved into the house, but beautiful in a different way. As it's dying back, its shape, you could say its skeleton, is more clearly revealed. The way that its trunk curves and its limbs reach for the sky is more than a work of art. Spending time with this tree, I was moved actually to look up the Zen reference to the withered tree. So that's the connection to Zen, I guess, or at least to Zen literature. Traditionally, the withered tree refers to samadhi, or meditative absorption, that state of mind where our minds are not clouded by delusive thoughts. I came across a fascicle in the Genja Koan, Dragon Song, or The Roar of the Dragon. The withered tree that I discovered there was not at all what I expected. As usual, Dogen gave me a much wider view. So that fascicle starts with the following koan. Tuzi, great master of Shu region, was once asked by a monk, Is there a dragon singing in a withered tree? Tuzi replied, I would say the dragon's roar exists within one's skull. Tuzi, great master of Shu region, was once asked by a monk, is there a dragon singing in a withered tree? Tuzi replied, I would say that the dragon's roar exists within one's skull. So what's this all about? What is the withered tree? And what's the dragon's song? Dogen writes, discussions about a withered tree and dead ash are originally teachings outside the way. But the withered tree spoken of by those outside the way, and that spoken of by Buddha ancestors, are far apart. Those outside the way talk about a withered tree, but they don't authentically know it. How can they hear the dragon singing? They think that a withered tree is a dead tree which does not grow leaves in spring. So when we first experience a state of stillness in our meditation practice, it's quite wonderful. Most of us, I think, come to meditation looking for something, and this peaceful state of mind is one of the things I think we're looking for. It's not only lovely, in fact, I think it can be quite addictive. We want to hold on to it. But if we stay with our practice long enough, we do come to realize that this peaceful feeling is ephemeral. All states of mind are ephemeral. And so in this paragraph, actually, Dogen is cautioning us not to confuse this peaceful state of mind, this state of quietude, with enlightenment. He's saying that a quiet state of mind is really quite different from being awake. It's very different from seeing through our delusive thoughts. If we were to cling to this state of peacefulness, this temporary state of peacefulness, we would conclude that when we don't feel peaceful, something is wrong. But life isn't always peaceful. Our lives have both joy and sadness. And we experience confusion, anger, and many other human emotions. Being awake to these things is not always peaceful. Dogen wants us to see that our practice, the withered tree, is not a dead state. Of course, he's using language in this interesting way. He's not referring to a withered tree as being a dead thing. He's referring to it as being very still, but very alive, like a tree in winter. He says that those of us who are grasping for a state of mind don't authentically know it. And because they don't authentically know it, how can they hear the dragon singing? Now, I think this metaphor of the dragon singing is just beautiful. Dragon metaphors occur often in Buddhism. Avalokiteshvara is often depicted riding a dragon. When we practice deeply, we are said to be entering the dragon's cave. I love that. We're entering the dragon's cave just by sitting on our cushions. So to me, the dragon singing in the withered tree is our expression of the Dharma, putting wisdom and compassion into action. That includes both wisdom and compassion for ourselves, with all of our states of mind, as well as wisdom and compassion for the whole catastrophe of our world. Unless we drop our delusions, drop our self-centered thinking, how can we really put wisdom and compassion into action? Later on, Dogen says, such trees as mountain trees, ocean trees, and sky trees are what withered trees are. Their budding is the roar of the dragon within a withered tree. A commentary about these sentences say that this is a description of various types of meditators. Mountain trees are those who are sitting as still as a mountain. Ocean trees are those who are exploring the depths, and sky trees are those who are exploring the unbounded. And our budding is the roar of the dragon within a withered tree. So all of us sitting here today are withered trees when we drop body and mind. Whenever we sit zazen wholeheartedly, we are withered trees. Again, Dogen's language can be challenging. It took me quite a while to really sort of wrap my head around this, but the phrase withered tree, it invokes in my mind something that's dead or dying, just as the tree that I described when we started. And that's what I was thinking about the withered tree. But this is dualistic thinking. We might recall case 55 of the Blue Cliff Record. A monk asks Dao Wu, "Is he alive or dead?" And Dao Wu replied, "I won't say. I won't say." In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha says, if a bodhisattva holds on to the idea that a self, a person, a living being, or a lifespan exists, that person is not an authentic bodhisattva. If a bodhisattva holds on to the idea that a self, a person, a living being, or a lifespan exists, that person is not an authentic bodhisattva. So I know I said earlier that trees have a lifespan, just like people and mountains and civilizations, and this is our ordinary understanding. In fact, I was just reading an article this week. Scientists are debating the question of what are the fundamental limits to the lifespan of a human being. It turns out the oldest living person was Jean Calment, who died in France in 1997 at the age of 122 years old. And I believe there's someone who's 117 or 118 years old now, so perhaps Jean Calment will lose her place in the Guinness Book of World Records. We don't know. So are there fundamental limits to how long people can live? There probably are, but we really don't know. Scientists debate this issue. But the Diamond Sutra isn't talking about any of this. It's exploring the dialectic of the Prajnaparamita. What we think of as a tree is, according to our ordinary way of thinking, it's a tree. You might say, well, of course it's a tree. I can see it. It's right over there. But that tree is a temporary collection of attributes. It's a maple tree. It's a very old tree. It's a certain size. But what I'm calling a tree right now doesn't have a fixed, permanent identity. That tree in my backyard was once a seed, then a seedling, and then a young tree. And it grew for many, many years, those years when we had family parties on the patio underneath the tree and ate birthday cake and watched children run around in the fall or in the summer or the spring. And that tree is now host for mushrooms, which will accelerate the decomposition of the wood, recycling nutrients and helping create soil. And spores from the mushrooms will spread to other hosts, which will long outlive the maple tree or perhaps any of us. So there is a being called a tree, but its life began long before the seed and will continue long after the mushroom spores have been spread by the wind. It's the same with the thing we call the self. So Dogen is always exposing dualities to us, challenging us to see reality more clearly. Our practice of dropping body and mind, our practice of just sitting, is the withered tree. Is it alive or is it dead? Ask yourself. According to Dogen, without a withered tree, without our practice, there wouldn't be the dragon singing. So we can understand this at many levels. Dogen has said, without practice, there is no enlightenment. Early in our experience of Zen, we seek enlightenment. We think there's a goal outside of ourselves that we need to attain. Dogen tells us that practice itself is the Buddha way, and assuming the zazen posture is itself the manifestation of Buddha. We chant, Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, revealing right here and now. Where else would Buddha nature be revealed? It's right here, right now. The dragon sings right here and now. How do you express the Dharma in your life? I remember a talk that Ryotan Roshi gave at a session many years ago, and it spoke to me at the time very, very deeply. He said that sometimes the best you can do, the very best you can do, is to just get up off the cushion and bow. You're tired. Maybe you're in pain. How do you express the Dharma? You do what you can. You get up off the cushion and bow. Maybe you're taking care of a sick child or a partner, and that's your expression of the Dharma. Maybe choosing to switch to clean energy or driving a hybrid car. Maybe speaking out when you see injustice. There are many ways we express the Dharma. A bit later on in this fascicle, Dogen embeds a quotation. He says, "How many times have I met the spring, my heart unswerving, is the dragon song of one who is completely withered. How many times have I met the spring, my heart unswerving." This is actually an excerpt from a poem that is quoted fully in another fascicle of Dogen's on ceaseless practice. So Master Fa Chang appears in this fascicle. And I haven't actually thoroughly explored this, but it kind of blew my mind that I was flipping in the Genja Koan from Dragon Song to on ceaseless practice. There's a whole 2 pages about Fa Chang, who studied with Mazu, and he asked him, "What is Buddha?" Mazu said, "Mind itself is Buddha." And upon hearing these words, Fa Chang had a realization. Later in his life, Fa Chang dwelled on Mount Dame as a hermit monk, eating pine cones and wearing lotus leaves for his clothing. And it says that he practiced zazen for 30 years and only saw the green and yellow of the mountains as the seasons came and went. Later, a monk came to visit Fa Chang and told Yangguan about him. And Yangguan was so impressed that he sent the monk back to invite Fa Chang to come and visit him. So this monk is now seeing Fa Chang for the second time and saying, Come with me, visit my master. He really wants to talk to you. He thinks you've got it." Fa Chang wouldn't leave the mountain, and he wrote a poem. "Broken down, yet living still, a withered tree aslant amidst the chill forest. How many times have I met the spring, my heart unswerving? Woodcutters pass this monk by without even a backward glance. So why does the carpenter eagerly desire to seek me out?" So the commentary says that a woodcutter is a common metaphor in Zen Buddhism for disciples who are still working on cutting the roots of their past karma. And of course, even the woodcutters, even those of us who are still working on cutting the roots, don't even see Fa Chang. We pass him by without a backwards glance. And the carpenter is an allusion to a spiritual master artisan. And so Fa Chang asks, well, if those who are trying to cut the roots of their delusion pass me by without even a backward glance, why does the carpenter eagerly desire to seek me out? What do I have to teach him? And so when the monk asked Fa Chang to come and visit his teacher, Fa Chang went deeper into the forest to practice more. I find that just very beautiful. Some days I find that I struggle to find a half an hour to sit. Fa Chang practiced ceaselessly to understand the way. And so I just thinking about this, I realized that, well, when I can't find the time to sit, still I can take a few deep breaths and return to this moment. The model set by our teachers and ancestors is so clear. Whatever we need is right here. There's no need to look elsewhere. Broken down, yet living still, a withered tree aslant amidst the chill forest. How many times have I met the spring, my heart unswerving? Thank you for your practice.